Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Test Those Breasts podcast. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn. I'm a retired teacher of 20 years and a breast cancer thriver turned staunch, unapologetic, loud supporter and advocate for others, bringing education and awareness through a myriad of medical experts, therapists, caregivers, and other survivors. A breast cancer diagnosis is incredibly overwhelming with the mounds of information out there, especially on Dr. Google. I get it. I'm not a doctor, and I know how important it is to uncover accurate information, which is my ongoing mission through my nonprofit. The podcast includes personal stories and opinions from breast cancer survivors and professional physicians, providing the most up-to-date information at the time of recording. Evidence, research, and practices are always changing, so please check the date of the recording and always refer to your medical professionals for the most up-to-date information. I hope you find this podcast a source of inspiration and support from my guests. Their contact information is in the show notes, so please feel free to reach out to them. We have an enormous breast cancer community ready to support you in so many ways. Now let's listen to the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I am your host, Jamie Vaughn, and I am extra ecstatic, excited, all the things to have my guest on today, Arianna Bennett. So Arianna Bennett is a fourth-generation Northern Nevadan, a journalist, a wife, and a stepmom of two human kids and two canine ones. A graduate of Reno High School, she got her start in journalism as editor of the school's newspaper, The Red and Blue, before getting her journalism degree from Northwestern University and going on to professional broadcasting, first in Billings, Montana, and then in Reno. She has been with KTVN 2 News Nevada as a reporter, anchor, and host of weekly news talk show Face the State since 2010. She is the proud recipient of an Edward R. Murrow Award and an Emmy. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in October of 2025 and is in the process of forcibly evicting the microscopic invaders. Well, Arianna, holy cow, how are you today?
I'm feeling good today. Yeah, we timed this podcast well. I've got energy. I'm feeling kind of normal in the midst of all the madness.
Well, I love that. And yeah, we did really time this really nicely. You and I had a good conversation about a week ago and really got to know each other. I first saw you in person at an event at UNR, and it was all about like disinformation, how to recognize misinformation and disinformation, which is right up my alley and my husband's alley because we are former social studies teachers and we actually taught media literacy and all of that. And then shortly after that, we find out that you have breast cancer. And typically I interview people who are survivors already, right? They're already, I mean, you're a survivor anyway. Once you get breast cancer, you're surviving. But I mean, after all the treatments and, surgeries and all the things, these are people that I typically interview along with healthcare providers, surgeons, oncologists, radiologists, all the things. You are one of the first people I have interviewed who is going through active treatment right now. And I just am so glad that you are able to be on the show to help kind of give us an idea of what you're going through right now. But before I start, I want to have you walk us through who is Arianna Bennett outside of the diagnosis? Who is this beautiful, wonderful, shiny person?
Oh gosh. I mean, I try to be shiny. As you know, some days the shine happens more easily than others. I think, right now it's a little hard to even see the who you are outside of the diagnosis because so much of your life revolves around just kind of like getting through the grind of chemo. But normally I am a passionate journalist. I love my job. I love my family and I love spending as much time outdoors as possible. So, normally I'd be out hiking up some mountains with my kids and dogs and, coming back and eating some good food and enjoying time with my family. And so I'm still able to do some of that, but just kind of to a lesser degree right now, which is occasionally hard to accept. But I'm a proud Northern Nevadan, would never want to live anywhere else. So yeah, that's pretty much me.
Yeah, you and I actually have even more in common because I went to Reno High School also.
Did you? Oh, go Huskies.
Lots of 86, a little bit older than that, but yeah, I was like, God, Reno is such a small town, and you and I
Mhm.
know a lot of people in common. So, given that, you and I talked about how you received your diagnosis, and I do want to go into that because it's pretty powerful. But what was it like receiving that diagnosis while being someone who delivers the news?
I think any time you receive news like that, it's this out of body surreal experience of like, wait a second, this isn't something that happens to me. This is something that happens to other people. You think about stuff like this and it's just, the possibility of it, but you just never think it could actually be you. So no matter who you are, I think it's that kind of out of body thing. So I found out I had cancer on October 1st, which happens to be Breast Cancer Awareness Day, which
Wow.
is, ironic. And, I went to work that day and, maybe I shouldn't have, I don't know, but it's kind of my default to just, like, shove life aside and get to work and put on the anchor face and do the job. And sometimes that's therapeutic, to just, like, get life put it on the back burner and focus on this, like, very high maintenance job that you can't really think about other stuff when you're doing it, but you get to work and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Day. And I had to anchor newscasts that were largely focused on breast cancer and the awareness of it. And I remember I got through like the first few blocks of the show just sitting there thinking, all right, universe, I'm aware. I feel very aware today of breast cancer, but I got through it. And I remember thinking, one day I'm going to write a story about this. With whatever I've learned and however I can help people. And that's going to be the first line. I found out I had breast cancer on Breast Cancer Awareness Day. And so I think like being a journalist and being a TV anchor, you do kind of tend to frame your life a little bit in like, how can I tell this story? And it helps a little bit to add a little levity of like, well, at least there's a good lead.
Yeah, well, and I feel like that is such a good segue into, like, how has this whole experience, you being in the public eye, how has that shaped your experience, kind of maybe even outside of the studio? Do people see you, and do they approach you? Do they what happens outside of the studio?
Yeah. I mean, it's a rare day that I go to the grocery store and I don't run into a friendly viewer who wants to say hello and talk about usually face the state, but sometimes other things. Going through a health crisis publicly, I've had a lot of people be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're sharing this with everybody." And they think it's all brave, but personally, I find it to be way easier to
Mhm.
be public about it rather than trying to hide it because I'm a out loud processor kind of person. I love people and I'm community oriented. So the idea of like going around with this big secret trying to pretend it's not happening to me would be exhausting. But being really open about it allows me to just be like, "Yep, like this is what's happening and I'm not embarrassed. There's nothing to be ashamed of and if I can turn this into something helpful, then I would like to do that." So I've had now not just the conversations about face the state at the grocery store, but about cancer. And it's been kind of amazing how many people have approached me with their own stories of survivorship, having breast cancer themselves or other types of cancer, or, having someone in their family go through it. It really touches all of us. And so everyone has a story and they relate. And I think like it's this great kind of cathartic community moment to be able to talk about all this stuff with people and process together. I'm gonna get all emotional because that's just the nature of the beast right now, but I really am so grateful for everyone who's reached out because it does make it feel like this great supportive community. You don't have to be alone when you're going through it, and I think that makes a huge difference.
For sure. I'm a very open person too, which is one of the reasons I do this podcast. I have conversations with so many people, and everywhere I go, I always run into someone also who's had even colon cancer or uterine cancer or,
Mhm.
whatever. And we just all have this thing that we have in common. We understand each other, and it is
Yeah.
emotional. And part of that emotion is, I definitely know this, is that the community that you sort of are surrounded with, and you meet so many people that I think is meant to be. Like, I feel like you and I are connected for a reason. I've been following you. I knew about your diagnosis, and I said, maybe someday I'll reach out to Arianna, and I finally did. And I feel like our conversation that we had a week and a half ago was so powerful because of the things that we had in common, and you were able to find kind of another avenue to tell your story. And I just think it's so important for people to understand that it's okay not to just keep it quiet, and actually to talk about or do anything that helps you with your mental health. This right here, what we're doing, helps me
Yeah.
tremendously with my mental health. So I don't know. I definitely resonate with what you're saying there. So
It's free
taking it one,
therapy, Jamie. It's free
it
therapy.
is.
That's what I tell
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
Okay. So, this whole idea of taking it one day of a at a time, what does that look like for you right now? Because you're right in the midst of it. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's chemo in a nutshell. I've kind of learned that you really just can't plan anything or predict how things are gonna go, which for a type A planner is very challenging. I like to kind of have my ducks in a row and know that I can get everything in life done the way it needs to be done. And not being able to plan is difficult because one day you might wake up and feel okay. And then you are good for a few hours, and then you hit the chemo wall at 2 p.m. and you are useless the rest of the day. Or you might wake up with like the worst hangover feeling you've ever had in your life, and the whole day is shot, and everything you planned on doing is just not going to happen. And or you might wake up feeling okay. Like today, I feel pretty good. And so that's a struggle, but I think it's just like keeping the end goal in mind of like this is temporary. This is not life for the rest of my life. Like this is just for right now. I can get through, for me, the total length of treatment is 3 months. I can get through 3 months, and I'm already halfway. So we'll get through the other half and then see what is it looks like on the other side. But it's just kind of like relaxing your expectations a little bit, resisting the urge to control and
Mhm.
plan. Thankfully, everyone in my life has been amazingly flexible. My job has been so understanding and fantastic. I went to work yesterday and I recorded an episode of Face the State, and I was planning on staying and anchoring. I was like, okay, I feel okay. Like I can do it. And my boss was literally like, you've done enough. Go home. Like we're fine. So they've been amazing. And I know that's really helpful. I know not everybody has a situation like
Right.
that. So super, super grateful for that too.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that disparity in a little bit, because I really do want to hit on that. What type of breast cancer do you have?
I have invasive ductal carcinoma, or I should say had, because
Ah,
they got
yeah,
it all out
good.
with the double mastectomy I had in November. So it was not a huge tumor. And when I first got diagnosed, they put me at stage 1B.
Mhm.
They said, this looks like we caught it early, and there's every possibility that you're not going to need any chemo or radiation after the fact. But then after the surgery, they send the tumor out, as you know, but listeners might not, out for pathology, and they get something called an oncotype score
Yeah.
back. And the oncotype score assesses 21 different genetic markers of my specific cancer, which I think is amazing science.
Mm.
And it basically gives you an idea of how likely your exact tumor is to recur.
Okay.
And the scary thing about a situation like this is since I don't have any breast tissue left, it's not going to recur as breast cancer. It's going to recur somewhere else. And because my cancer is hormone sensitive, I'm HER2 negative and BRPR positive. That means that any part of my body that has hormone receptors could be vulnerable to growing the cancer. So that could be bones, liver, brain, places where you really don't want to have a recurrence of cancer. So they basically said to me, you have a high chance of your cancer recurring based on this oncotype score, and we highly recommend chemo, which was just a gut punch because I think, you're just so hoping that you're not going to need it, that the surgery is enough, and that you'll be able to go on with your life after healing up from that. And then to be told, nope, your cancer journey is going to be a lot different than you expected sucks. But we're in it now and getting through it.
How is your oncologist with this? Are they empathetic, or what's your experience?
You know what's funny? I have so little time with the actual oncologist. I spend almost all my time with the nursing staff, and they are spectacularly amazing in every way. Truly, people who I would love to befriend and keep once this is all over because they're so funny and smart and caring and awesome. I am at the Conrad Breast Center now. It was not my original place where I started. I ended up switching for a variety of reasons. I'm very, very happy at Conrad. And my oncologist is great. He listened to me, which I felt I really needed, heard my specific situation. I had some concerns about different types of chemo and the side effects that they can have. I'm 38, so I hopefully have a long life ahead of me. And I had a lot of concerns about certain types of chemo can have more long term consequences than others, specifically on your cardiovascular system. And so initially, when we were making my treatment plan, I was concerned about some things and he really listened. He heard me. I said, look, I am 38. I am an active person. I am made happy by hiking up mountains. And if I can't do that in my life because this chemo damages my heart or lungs, it's going to really impact my quality of life. Is there a way that we can kind of mitigate this concern? And he heard me and was like, yep. He's like, I hear you. Okay, let's maybe look at this different type of treatment rather than this one. And so that's how we kind of came up with a collaborative plan together. And that was, I think, what I had been missing in my first spot. I didn't feel like it was as much of a dialogue. And I really appreciated that at Conrad. So that's been great. And then well, Conrad, just in general, for anyone who hasn't been there, is a beautiful facility. It's like brand new, picture windows overlooking the mountains, private chemo infusion rooms with heated massage chairs, and like they've kind of reinvented the wheel when it comes to women's health. I've learned a lot about just kind of the standard of care and how it's done in some places, and Conrad is doing it differently and better. And it shows. They really put a lot of thought into the patient experience and how they could improve on, how it's always been done. And I've been very, very impressed.
I'm really excited to hear that. I remember interviewing another surgeon who it was before the center opened, and she was talking about all the things they had planned. And I finally was able to make it over there because I took a friend of mine to her first oncology appointment, and I got to see that area and they're off and, just a little bit of it. I haven't seen all of it. I've seen pictures, and I'm just so thrilled that they were finally able to get that here in Reno because honestly, all of that, it's like holistic care. And we're going to
Yeah.
talk about that because they have everything under one roof, including cold capping and all the things. And so, but I want to go back real quickly and say, how amazing that is that you actually got to have a conversation with your oncologist and collaborate and decide things together,
Yep.
because that you're right, that is not always the experience that people have. I know I didn't have that experience. I did with my surgeon when I went to New Orleans, and that was the first time that I had actually been able to sit down and make these decisions together. And So it just thank you for bringing that up, and I think it's really important to amplify the importance of that because what a lot of people don't understand, as at least people that haven't had cancer or even doctors who haven't been in the situation, that mental health plays a huge role in this. And so for us to be able to advocate for ourselves and ask questions and question things about, some of the treatment without being, you know, I guess pinpointed as somebody who's causing a ruckus or something, or, it's been nice to be able to my next person that I'm interviewing, her organization is called BC Ruckus because she caused a ruckus when
I love
she was
that.
in treatment,
I
and
love
she's
that.
perfect, but, I mean, we don't wanna feel like we are, we wanna feel like this is our body. We want
Yeah.
to make those decisions.
And it's hard to not really argue, because I'm not saying argue, but question the advice you're given from experts who absolutely know what they're talking about. I never have doubted that everyone who's given me advice in the medical field knows what they're doing, but I mean, I'm a journalist, I ask a lot of questions, and I really wanted to understand the reasons behind all these recommendations. And I think the important thing for me was having a doctor who didn't get defensive, who understood that I'm just trying to understand. I'm not questioning your expertise. I just really need to understand the why so that I can wrap my head around it. And then, have it be a conversation that's unique to me, not just a boilerplate. This is the treatment in this case, and everybody gets this thing. Like I said to my current oncologist, like, I'm a news anchor for a living, and I understand that hair loss is a part of chemo, but that's kind of a problem for me, for what I do as a job. And I kind of asked him, what to expect about the hair loss. And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh no, we're going to cold cap you. We're going to try to save as much of your hair as possible." And I was like, "What?" Like, I was floored. I didn't even know it was an option. And the fact that he heard me and was just like, "Okay, this is a person who's in this specific situation," and not that anybody is comfortable with losing their hair, but it is kind of especially terrible when you're on camera for a living. I don't know. That meant a lot to me. It just felt like he really was listening, and so I felt good about landing in that space. But if I can say something about all of this that I've learned, is like, don't be afraid to ruffle feathers a little bit. Don't be afraid to switch doctors. If you're not jiving with your doctor, I really wrestled with that decision a lot because my previous doctor was a nice person. She seemed very smart and capable. And it wasn't like she didn't seem like she knew what she was doing. It's just, I didn't really feel like we were on the same wavelength, I guess. And it was a hard choice, and I felt guilty about it. It was like breaking up with a boyfriend who didn't do anything wrong, and you're just like, you feel like the bad guy. But at the end of the day, I ended up in a place that was a much better fit for me. So I would really recommend, if you're not feeling it, to look around. It can't hurt to get another opinion, and don't worry about ruffling feathers. Advocate for yourself, because this is your body and your life, and you're
Yes.
going to be going through something hard. Every little bit that you can make slightly easier on yourself, you should.
Right. And it's not about them. It's about
No.
you. And there's such a huge theme that is reoccurring in my life is this whole thing about boundaries too. We are allowed to create boundaries
Yeah.
and we are allowed to get a second opinion and a third opinion and a fourth opinion if that's what it takes for you to feel comfortable in where you are. So I'm so
Right.
glad that you found a home at the Conrad Breast Center, and I'm thrilled that he brought up cold capping because I didn't even know what that was until I already found out I was gonna lose my hair. And I think I asked my oncologist, I said, "Am I gonna lose my hair?" And she goes, "Yeah, you're gonna lose your hair, but it'll grow back." And I'm like, But and I had long blonde hair for as long as I can remember. So I know how hard that is. But to have someone actually say, "What are you talking about? We're gonna do cold capping." I what? I
I
saw it
know.
a couple of times the infusion center on a couple of people, but it was too late for me. I was starting chemo like next week and
Yeah.
yeah, and then you have to order it. You had to order it. It was expensive. So knowing that it's actually in the Conrad Center, that's a huge
Yeah.
plus.
It's a
Yeah.
totally different system. It was Yes, and I was in your boat too. I That was also the line I got. "Yep, you're gonna lose your hair, but you can get a wig. It'll grow back."
Yeah.
And I felt so ridiculous because I was more stressed and sad about losing my hair than I was about losing my boobs, Jamie. Like, I can't explain it, but there was something about just like the hair thing that sent me. It's like when I'm BRCA positive, so and I've known about that for years. So that's a slightly different conversation. I was somewhat better prepared for getting that news than I was about the hair loss. But I said to my husband, I was like, I feel completely ridiculous. I know that this is a vanity thing, but I just like I can't get past it.
Not a
And
level.
he was like, truly, you are more upset about the hair than you were about hearing about the double mastectomy. Sorry, my very clingy dog has decided that she needs to be a part of
Hi,
this.
beautiful.
Yeah, hi,
You should,
Penny.
Griselda, you should come. Yeah, come here. I mean, everyone's different. Everyone has a different reaction to what it is that they are going to lose. And I was really upset about my breasts because I had no indication that I was going to have to ever do that. So I really mourned my breasts. But then when I was going to lose my hair, of course, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? But by the time I actually had my husband shave my head, I was already, all right, let's just get this over with. I had already gotten a badass haircut. I took control of the loss of my own hair, already took control. He shaved it, and I actually ended up really liking it. Everybody called me GI Jamie, and of course it started patching, and then I started wearing my turbans and little beanies and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it just really smacks you upside the face, of these things that you are going to lose control over, just like your energy when you sometimes you wake up and you're just gone, you're like, I can't even move. You have to succumb to that. You can't,
Yeah.
and you have to be okay and very flexible about what you can and cannot do. So yeah, that's um gosh, it's all coming back to me. I want to go back to community. When you were talking about running into people and having conversations and opening up, and I think that there's a place that people can go, regardless of whether they're open with their story on a podcast or on the news or, at a grocery store or whatever. If there is someone who just really doesn't talk about it a lot, Cancer Community Clubhouse, Natalie Stevenson started that. I don't know if you are aware of that, is a wonderful organization that supports cancer patients and survivors. And so finding a community place like that in your area, because I have an audience that goes outside of Reno, that is so important. And there's so many people who don't even know it exists. So I try to amplify it quite a bit so people know. Nevada Cancer Coalition is super good with navigation and resources to get out there to people so that they know all of the support systems. And so I really do think that that's really important. And I'm actually on one of their navigation cohorts right now. So I'm getting such a better idea of how Nevada Cancer Coalition works and all of the organizations and just patient advocates like me that they work with. And it's just brilliant. I love it. And there's always room for improvement, which is what we're working on right now, where all the gaps are.
Yeah.
um, okay, so what have you learned through the process that you wish more people knew?
Hmm. Well, a big one for me is the early detection and screening piece of all this. So I mentioned earlier that I'm BRCA positive. I knew already because my mom is BRCA positive. So I got tested years ago, found out. And ever since then, I've been on an every 6-month screening protocol. And that is the only reason we found the cancer because I'm, as I mentioned, 38. So I'm still too young for standard mammograms to be recommended if I didn't already know my risk. So if I had no idea about my genetic risk or my family history, which is the case for a lot of people, I wouldn't have been getting the screening to begin with. And for a while, I was resistant to getting the BRCA test because I just didn't want to carry that. it's just when you're young and you're in your 20s and you're single or you're going through college, you're starting your career, you're doing all this stuff, you're thinking about like, I knew what was going to be recommended once I got a BRCA diagnosis if I was BRCA positive, and it's radical. It's double mastectomy. It's having your ovaries taken out. It is being put on medication that has side effects. There's a lot of big decisions you have to make when you get a BRCA diagnosis. And so for a long time, I really was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know because I'm not willing to do the surgeries yet, basically. And eventually I did obviously get the test and I got my results and I got on the screening protocol and everything. But what scares me is it was kind of almost like a split second decision to get tested. And it was my gynecologist, who is amazing, who really pushed for it. And because she was pushy, I got the test, and that this is, down the line, the screening that ended up saving my life. And I just think if I had had a doctor who hadn't pushed me, if I'd had, a doctor who kind of was like more laissez-faire about it, or yeah, it's your decision, do it when you want. My doctor was like, no, you're going today. She was like, we will do it right here today. And she was absolutely right. And I just think like I was lucky to have a doctor who did that for me. And I would really like other people to know that even though that knowledge is heavy and scary, it is really important to have. And so don't do what I did. Like, do it early, do it often, get your screening, find out about your genetic risk, because there are things that you can do to mitigate the risk, or at the very least catch it early so that it doesn't become a death sentence. And I wish more people knew that. And so I'm pushing that message pretty hard. If you have a family history, if you have any potential for genetic risk, find out now, because you don't want to find out when it's too late. And that would have been
Yes.
the reality for me. So I sent you a link, and some of you might have seen Olivia Munn pushes this really hard. I don't know if you followed her story at all, but she's all about the lifetime breast cancer risk assessment test. It's free, it's online, and worth taking. At the very least, you can do it from home. You don't even have to have blood drawn to do that. But that could be a good launching point to finding out if, maybe need a little extra screening. Because in my case, my BRCA diagnosis got me access to a breast MRI once a year that insurance paid for. And it wouldn't have if I didn't have that. And the MRI was what caught my cancer because the mammogram didn't catch it and an ultrasound didn't catch it. was clear on both
Do
of
you
those.
do you have dense breast tissue like most people do
I
as well?
I
Yes.
do. Yes. I'm not like the densest, but like a moderately, they said heterogeneously dense. Dense enough that a small cancer tumor right in the dead center was not detectable on a mammogram even when they knew it was there.
Right.
They couldn't find it. So it just is really important to know your situation and to take all the actions you need to so you can at least catch it early. There's also a lot of research that shows that taking hormonal birth control can reduce your risk of ovarian cancer, which is also raised if you have BRCA. So that's an easy fix. Like if you don't want to do these extreme measures, you can go on hormonal birth control. It's like a 50% reduction in risk. So that's worth looking into also. I guess the important piece is it's actionable. It doesn't necessarily have to mean the radical surgeries right away, but at the very least, you get the screenings so that
Right.
if it happens to you, you catch it early.
Hi, friends. Before we wrap up part one, I just want to say this. What Arianna shared about almost not getting that test, that matters. Because early detection, knowing your risk, those are the things that change outcomes. So we're going to pause here. In part two, we're going to get into what really happens after the diagnosis, what treatment actually looks like, how she's navigating chemo, and what's helping her get through it day by day. You are not going to want to miss that conversation. Friends, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Test Those Breasts. I hope you got some great, much needed information that will help you with your journey. As always, I am open to guests to add value to my show, and I'm also open to being a guest on other podcasts where I can add value. So please reach out if you'd like to collaborate. My contact information is in the show notes. And as a reminder, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast will truly help build a bigger audience all over the world. I thank you for your efforts. I look forward to sharing my next episode of Test Those Breasts.